Oh, fuck, it actually didn't do
Nope.
this. Yay, awkward start! Let's go!
Welcome back, Mighty Vandals, to Tubs at the Club, the Big Sky Champions affiliate of the Big Sky Podcast Network. I am your host, Dallas Hammer, joined by the Brick Wall, producer redacted himself, the man in Moscow, Marten Heemstra. Marten, tell the people how you're feeling.
Pretty fucking good right now. It's damn good. It's a damn good week to be a Vandal. Sunday's going to be a real fun day, and hopefully we get to find out where they're going next, and we'll find out where they're going to be playing next weekend.
And last but not least, brave, bold Brian Marceau. This day has been coming your essentially entire life. Your instant reactions about 24 hours later.
I wanted to record last night, except we had a windstorm. So my living situation is kind of weird, which I will not explain, made recording not possible. Glad that Tom Kendall is noticing the new font, but this was one of the best days of my life as a Vandal. There are very few that are in any sort of competition with this right now. The Jason X run, both of Jason X runs in the playoffs are about it. Or maybe like the actual firing, then firing of Petrino, then hiring of Jason Eck. Maybe that's it. Like we're talking all time Vandal days that if this isn't your top day, you got to tell me what is. And if something's going to top this in the future, again, you got to tell me what it is.
Yeah, for those watching us live on YouTube, this is our first full team stream from our new provider. So bear with us as we work out the kinks, the new fonts, the new graphics, all the things. We're hoping it gives you 3% more professionalism with about 20% more of the Tubs dickheadness you've come to expect from us. So my money's still on Brian being the first mute of the show, but we will find that out in a little bit. Guys, this is Around the Bar, brought to us by Hughes River Expedition. Marten, I want to start with you because we've come to expect greatness from the Idaho women's basketball program. Now, it's been a little bit of a drought, but it's been building for some time, and we all kind of had a pretty good feeling of how this weekend was going to go. So, guys, let's get into it. The women's basketball team is going dancing.
Yeah, they're going dancing. Yeah, they fucking did it. They won the tournament. They beat everybody they expected to. I'm not gonna lie, it's Montana State, so there's always gonna be a little nerves, but hey, I'm excited. They kicked ass all season and they showed it up by kicking ass in the tournament again, as like they did in the past. But I'm Brian, if you want to kind of go over the more analytical stuff instead of me just going the fan here in just a second, like I'm excited. Like the last time I was this proud, I'm not gonna lie, probably was when they won the Big Sky tournament back in 2016, 10 years ago to the day, by the way. Have a former player Flet Taylor Pierce's jersey on right now because big fan. But like it's just I'm excited. Like it's this team's been fun, and I can't wait to see the nation get to see this team as well. Hopefully.
Yeah, I think we need to talk about the game itself a little bit.
No.
I really do, because that was one of the women's final against Montana State was one of the most intense basketball games I've watched in my life. And I've watched a lot of basketball, guys. I've been to this might floor you guys because of how long I've been an Idaho fan. I've actually been to a lot of good basketball games. For a long time, I just never got to talk about them. I was watching at home, so I can only imagine how it felt in the arena, but that was tight, wire to wire. Idaho led the overwhelming majority of that game. But look, Montana State was the number 69 NCAA net team heading into that game. Idaho was 100. I'm not using that to obsess over numbers. I'm just saying that Montana State is a team that on paper, they're not going to get an at-large bid, but on paper, that is a team that at least there should be discussion about an at-large bid. However, on two separate occasions, your Vandals shut the door on that. So the game itself, it was pretty wild to me we didn't have a single all-star performance for the Vandals like taking over this game. This was an incredibly balanced effort. I do want to give credit to Anna Beat, who had her tournament high 12 points this game, leading score for the team. Idaho absolutely needed every single one of those points. Believe Vandals had Marten. You can pull it up. I think it was four players in double figures for the Vandals. No, sorry, 3. We had Anna Pinheiro, who had another huge game. Also, Anna Pinheiro was her defense on league MVP Taylor Chiric was huge. Chiric finished with 12 total points on 10 shot attempts. And anyway, she's the type of player who can take over a game. Chiric absolutely did not take over this Big Sky Conference Championship game. And then Hope Hassman she added 11 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. But I guess the more of the story of this game, the crowd was great. Now I will say the Montana State contingent in Boise, they showed up pretty damn well. Like you could tell those Bobcats were loud. And the reports I got was, yes, we did have some good Vandals there, but I think this is a topic for a different episode at some point. When the Vandals have had as many not great seasons in other like marquee sports as they have for over so many years, the fan base needs to get retrained on how to be intense. Not to say that the Vandal fans were not good, but like the Montana State fans, from what I was told, were great at that game. Watching the stream, you could tell that it was maybe the best, if that was not the best environment the Idaho women have had the entire year. It was the second, with the best environment being the home win over Montana State earlier in the year. But Boise showed up for both games and for the women in particular, because women's sports attendance wise, we all know this is not a secret. Women's sports attendance is typically lower than that of men's. I'm happy for our women's team that they got to pick up the championship in front of a good Idaho contingency. But especially that fourth quarter, I don't have the number in front of me. I don't think Idaho made a field goal the last 5 minutes of the game.
It was last 7, I believe.
Last 7 minutes of the game did not make a field goal. played tough defense to keep it close. And also, like, when Idaho went to the free throw line, that's how they were able to narrowly hold on to that lead at the end of the game. But this was, again, huge win. There's a million reasons this is a huge win. Martin, you already talked about it. Our women's team is good, but it had been a decade since they'd made the NCAA tournament. So the drought they'd had was not like the catastrophic drought our men's team had over that decade. Of course, like there were multiple 20-win seasons in between making the NCAA tournament in 2016 and this season. And, also many seasons, a couple 19-win seasons as well. So I'm not trying to write that off, but this was big for Idaho to do what they did, to run the table, 18 wins in a row, Martin. I guess, I'll let you talk a little bit more championship game stuff, but this is a women's team that the University of Idaho women's team has never won an NCAA tournament game. So this is the fourth time the women have qualified for the NCAA tournament in program history. And look, the only legitimately I don't think ranking seasons, like as far as like putting others down, matters, but like there is a very reasonable interpretation of this team as this is the best women's season or the most successful women's season the University of Idaho has ever had. 18 wins in a row, most regular season wins in program history, I believe, although back in 85, the Vandal women won 28 games, so most conference wins in a season. You count the conference tournament, they're sitting at like 20 Big Sky wins. Pretty goddamn impressive run for this women's team, Martin.
Oh yeah, no, it's very impressive. It's up. It's already knocked out like the 2015-16 team, which I'm very close and personal to, like have so too. But it's like you said, Brian, this team is taken over. This is the best women's team I think this program's ever had. Sorry, Alyssa Charleston. Sorry, Taylor Pierce. Sorry, Michaela Friends. Sorry, all those players. You are very good, and probably you are all on my like all women's basketball, all women's basketball team of all time. But like this team has been special.
By the way, I need to correct myself. I was wrong. I misread that. Idaho's sitting at 29-5. That's the most wins in program history. My bad. That 85 team won 28 games. They only had 2 losses, but this is a historic season for Idaho. Historic for head coach Arthur Moreira. As we all know, only Brazilian coach in the history of Division I basketball. Not that itself matters, but he's been a wild story in and of itself. Got the job kind of out of nowhere when Carrie Amy left. And this season, he goes 18-12 in year 1 and then 29-5 in year 2, absolutely abusing other teams in the portal in the preseason before rolling through 18 straight wins. And look, their only loss in a really goddamn long time was that ass beating at Montana State. 18 straight wins since then, man. It is virtually impossible to do more.
Yeah, I don't know. You take virtually every Idaho athletic program ever. I don't know if there has been a team that has gone on a run like that, losing by 30 to Montana State in Bozeman, as again, news and rumblings of this team's good enough that they could get an at-large to the tournament. Idaho gets crushed, and then, like you said, Brian, 18 straight wins. Don't know what that sound effect was. Still learning Restream, guys. Sorry about that. But man, I went back and looked through the stats because I'm a stats dork. Idaho on this run going into the tournament, the women won 11 of those. What was at the time 15 straight wins. 11 of those were double digits. Like it wasn't like Idaho was scraping through. There were a couple of close ones against Sacramento State and obviously Montana State. The second go around was overtime, but this was a team that was night in and night out smoking the other opposition every single night. Honestly, Martin, you were pulling the bracket stuff last night and all throughout yesterday. This might be one of the higher seeds we will ever see in our lifetimes that Idaho is going to earn. Again, we'll find out on Sunday, but it's looking pretty good.
Brian, I hope you're okay with me jumping ahead to this, but the tournament stuff, I mean, I know it was the Dallas, you may remember from maybe covering the. Did you cover it back when they won in the last year in the WAC?
Yeah, so I was a student in what 2012, 2013, and then I was in the media the next two, the next
the
one. So I was
2013. I remember the 2013-14 team. I believe it was. It was 2013-14 team. I know John was talking about like wanting that higher seed. He got the higher seed, but got a underseeded Louisville team, and pretty much I remember watching the reaction. Newly was pissed for that, but it's about maybe probably about hopefully from looking at some stuff, it's gonna probably maybe looking at like a 14 seed, stretch 12, probably that, and maybe a 15 if the bracket people don't hate us a lot, but there's a lot good to look forward to, I think.
Yeah, honestly, and I it's so difficult to discuss certain things without them being political, as there is a bill in the going around in Idaho right now to limit the amount of foreign exchange students that are allowed to play on a sports team. But man, this roster that Arthur put together, that is again a lot of girls from not Moscow, Idaho. Honestly, going to go down as, in my opinion, maybe the most talented team that we've ever seen. I mean, Deb Dos Santos was first team all WAC last year, was obviously injured to start the year, but that's your sixth man or sixth player, excuse me. Your sixth player is a girl that is a first team all conference, like runaway player when fully healthy. Like
one top reserve in the Big Sky.
Thank you, Brian. So man, we have given Terry Golick a lot of crap. Most of it very much well deserved. And say what you will about the laziness that is perceived based on constantly just promoting up the previous assistant or giving interim coaches 3-year contracts that they didn't deserve. All that to say, man, the decision that 2 years ago we were talking about Carrie Amy, like, wow, what a disaster this looks like. You couldn't get the coach to sign the contract. Man, putting Arthur Moreira up in charge of this program was an all-time move. Give credit where credit is due. Coach Moreira has done an incredible job, and I really hope the contract comes in well-deserved for Moreira to keep him here for a very long time.
Yeah, I don't have a ton to add, man. Co-signed. We're obviously going to wait and see what happened. For the women's previous seedings for Idaho, that 2016 team was a 16 seed. As referenced earlier, the 24 team out of the WAC was a 14, and then the 2013 team was a 16 seed as well. The bracketology stuff I had been reading projects Idaho theoretically as a 14 seed. The way the women's NCAA tournament is run, it is different than the way the men's tournament is run, in that the highest seed in a region hosts all those regional games until we're out of the second round. So we have no idea where Idaho could be playing. We're going to find out Sunday. And producing in public, I can
tell you a couple of the stuff. It's a few consistent stuff has been like Dallas Fort Worth for Tech at TCU for the first couple of games. There's been one, I want to say it was Champaign, Illinois. I want to say that's University of Illinois, right, Dallas?
Yeah.
Yep.
University of Illinois. There was one I saw in Michigan, wherever University of Michigan is. Almost said the wrong school. Sorry, Wax Party fans. But another one, Michigan. There's a lot of different places for that
right
over there. So it's
that's to say you can't look online today and know the theoretical spots for a fact where the tournament will be played. Whereas, like for the men, you absolutely can look up where that's going to be. Very public, quickly, I can go on Sunday if we go late for a reaction show. Just FYI, guys. But I will say, just comparatively, this team, it feels like their seeding should probably be in the modern era. I'm not counting the 85 that team right now because the tournament bracket construction is different. In the 21st century, it would be astonishing for this to not be the Idaho team with the best seed, or at worst tied for the best seed in program history.
Hitting the comment section real quick. Steve Kurtz mentioning the international student bill died in committee. Thank you, Steve, for jumping in with that one. Been a long couple weeks for me, so hadn't fully caught up on that. So thank you. Very glad to see that. Crewhead 76. Time to be real about athletics. Admin, get your shit together with money and pay these coaches. And we are going to certainly talk about that because we've got another.
Speaking of paying and supporting them, support them. You donate to the team and give money. I'm not gonna go. You know what? I'm not traveling to these games. I want to, but you know what I'm gonna do? Donate what I would have spent on money. I already dropped $1,000 on last night for the women. Might do something on not as much later, but hey, you know what? Fucking love them. Trying to hopefully do the best I can to keep them here as long as possible.
One last comment I want to hit. Ross Warren 04. Whatever the future holds, Art brought us a championship that is forever. And again, who knows what the future does hold, especially with a mid-major school that does not have the ability to pay coaches what they can get on the open market. Man, we will always have this season. And again, yesterday, if you're listening live, this being recorded on Thursday night, if you are listening on podcast services, Wednesday, March 11th, in my opinion, the greatest day in Vandal sports history. But
just want to say one last thing too about this team. Obviously, they're good. We've covered that exhaustively, and we've also tried to, within reason, give them as close to 50-50 coverage with the men's team this year too. By the way, one of the only media outlets who's attempting to do that too. FYI. But the team itself, from the coaches to the players, this is one of the most easily likable teams I have ever covered. The coaching staff, super nice, super friendly. I know that hey, I've got a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. Twice I was able to bring my daughters down after the game. And Sarah Brands remembered my oldest daughter. And by the way, we didn't hang out for a long time. She just hung out and she was there for 10 seconds, took pictures, but still for my daughter, it's cool to be remembered by, someone big and cool like that. So really happy for this team that they actualized, honestly, beyond the expectations. I feel like maybe Marten had different expectations, but I feel like this team not only met expectations, but exceeded them. Because I'll be open, I still thought that Montana State is probably the favorite heading into the tournament, even though Idaho had beat them narrowly at home and was riding that winning streak. I was terrified Montana State was gonna pick up the championship game, and had Montana State picked it up, I wouldn't have been disappointed because this is a very good team. And that Montana State team, if they're good enough to be in discussion for an at-large bid that they won't get, that is a very good Big Sky team. Mm-hmm. And the fact that our Vandals beat them 2 out of 3 times at home and on the neutral, and for the women's game, I will say this was probably closer to a neutral floor because you did have a good contingency of both Bobcat and Vandals at that game. Yeah, no, dude, Vandals just did it. So yeah, congrats to the team, congrats to the players. Fingers crossed about NCAA tournament seed, because man, if this team gets a good seed, if they can pick up that first NCAA tournament win in program history, oh man, it's already an all-timer season. That would just be the cherry on top.
Would absolutely solidify it as the greatest season in Vandal women's history. In my humble opinion, Marten, you are our expert, so I'll let you push back if I am wrong, but pretty big time.
First, I was the first. Let's go.
Marten was muted for anybody that missed it. Marten, officially the first person to be muted on Restream. Love it.
Yeah, but no, you're probably right. This will be probably the best. I'll say it is now. They are. It's yeah.
Yeah. So just for anybody that isn't too terribly familiar with the women's selection show, that is going to be at 5:00 Pacific, 6:00 Mountain Time on Sunday, March 15th, where, again, you can sit and watch ESPN take the most, I guess, most intelligent people they have working and covering women's basketball, talking about things they probably don't know a ton about. They'll get the big seed stuff right, but give them a little bit of slack if and when they fuck things up about Idaho and the rest of the small schools, because that's just kind of ESPN selection shows. Always has been, always will be. So, Marten, Brian, any final thoughts on what an incredible season the Vandal women's basketball team has had before, again, we get that nice little cherry on top going dancing? starting in a couple weeks.
No, man, we can wait till we have the close in the book episode, which we don't know when that's going to be.
How nice is that? We're in the middle of March and we don't have to close the book right now, boys. With that being said, as most of our transfer portal lovers would say, if you are looking for a great all-inclusive week-long vacation, don't look past your backyard. Hughes River Expeditions has been vandal-owned and operated since 1976, and they're ready to take you on the vacation of a lifetime. Enjoy a multi-day trip down the Middle Fork of the Salmon, the main Salmon River of No Return, the Salmon River Canyons, or the Selway, and you can check out special trips like one to see the Perseid meteor shower. Camp on pristine beaches, Brian. Beaches, always beaches. Run amazing whitewater, hike scenic trails, spot wildlife, soak in beautiful natural hot springs. And the same thing I say every week when I'm here, guys. The most remote stretches of river in the entire United States are yours for fishing. Just bring your clothes. Colin and HRE are going to handle everything else. Grab a paddle, catch dinner, and ride the bull all throughout the Gem State. Call them now 406-540-4450 or check them out at hughesriver.com. If you're listening to this and you're thinking, man, I'm not going to remember hughesriver.com. I'm not going to remember that phone number. You know what you can do? Now with our new power of Restream, you can jump back up here on the webcast that's on YouTube. Again, this is being recorded live. It's going to be on YouTube if you're not listening to it or watching it on YouTube. You come back, you pull up this ad, boom, we got a QR code right on the screen. All you got to do, scan it, boom, takes you right to the website. But Brian, it is time for, I'm going to date myself here a little bit. I am 34 years old. I have never seen in my life the Idaho men's basketball team make the NCAA tournament. But the 36-year drought is over. And finally, Idaho basketball is going dancing, Brian.
Yeah, I want to contextualize this for a second, just for going over the back and forth, because the women's situation is different. That was like, hey, this is a team that hit the top of the mountain that had been good to solid for a decade and change. Not the case. Not the case for the men's team. I got to Tubbs at the Club. The way I got here was back in the day when we had different hosts. I messaged in because I just wanted to cover basketball. I was like, hey, dude, I'll cover basketball. And at that time, there was virtually nothing covering basketball. That was off of Idaho having 3 winning seasons in a row back in the Don Verlin days. And we kind of thought, oh, hey, man, this is kind of okay. Like, let's see how this goes. In the first 7 years of covering basketball for Tubbs the Club, Idaho went 58 and 156. It's a 27% winning percentage. That counts Pribble's first 2 years, guys. So it's not just the bad man who can't hurt us anymore. It was 3 different coaches and a lot of bad basketball.
Brian, how is the bad man doing?
Who cares?
No,
exactly. That's the right answer, Martin.
Exactly, exactly as you'd guess, exactly as anyone would have guessed. But that's a lot of bad basketball. The guys who've been around for Tubbs the Club, and I'm bringing this up. We don't talk about Tubbs the Club as the story of what we do because we cover the team. We don't cover ourselves. But just FYI, guys, basketball, women's and men's, is not really the moneymaker for the show. If what we cared about strictly was like efficiency and view counts, we wouldn't even cover basketball at all. We do like what Grizz fan does, which is have a really excited, motivated football season and then take a break for 8 months and then come back for football. But we don't. We cover that. That's a labor of love for us. And I say that because for the listeners, people who've been supporting the show for a long time, that's something they want. And we all believe that both the men's and women's team are worth covering. That's why we've done it the way we have. And especially this last year, trying to push the women's team more and more and more. That's just a long way of saying we've got a lot of people who've been along for this 7-year ride of garbage. And this season, some of it felt different. Finally finished above 500 narrowly. This is more of a discussion for a future episode, but I think there was also a little bit of a change in the fan base of this is the first time of actually having real expectations in Pribble's 3rd year. Sometimes the team met them, sometimes they did not. Heading into the Big Sky Conference tournament, this is a team, yes, they had a winning record, but they had not won more than 2 games in a row the entire year. That counts playing sub D, going 3-0 against sub D1 teams. Even when you mix that in the OOC, this team did not once prior to the Big Sky Conference tournament win more than 2 games in a row. And now, counting that last regular season win at Eastern Washington, your Vandals are sitting on a 5-game winning streak. And something happened this tournament with this team that the diehards in the patreon.com/Tubs the Club, #EliteTubs Discord, support the show, guys, have been talking about all year of the team has talent. They've got pieces, but like they get into these lulls. And that's part of why I think they left some wins on the table. You might say that, hey, losing Christian Gonzalez could have added a couple wins to the regular season. And if in the regular season you get to that magical number of 20, maybe you do feel different about this team. But every team deals with injuries, and the season is what it was. So heading into this tournament, we're at 17 wins. But then the Vandals, to sprint through, started off with like the worst 8 minutes of basketball in the history of the sport in the first half against Sac State, but ultimately beat the shit out of Sacramento State. Then against Montana State, they just played tough. They were getting the ball in the paint. They were not being passive, relying too much on the 3-pointer, playing the type of basketball that we've wanted to see all year. That type of play, also playing tougher defense, that persisted through the next 3 games. And this men's team actualized everything in this Big Sky Conference tournament that we all believed we could and maybe should see after that game 1 win over Washington State. Yeah, there was no Christian Gonzalez for the rest of the season, but other guys stepped up. Isaiah Brickner makes the all-tournament team, won the top reserve in the Big Sky this year. He carried the team in that second half of that championship game. Isaiah Brickner, who's been a talented guy. And, when you come off the bench, one of the things that's tough is like you just don't have the leash of the starters. And sometimes players do need to play through mistakes to be able to reach that next level. And Brickner, he didn't really get to be a starter until later in the season. And part of that had to do with Christian Gonzalez getting hurt in the first place, of him getting additional minutes. If you guys remember, Brickner was barely playing at the start of the season. Then he makes the all-tournament team and was Idaho's offensive catalyst for that championship, putting up 23 points. Also had a couple electric plays, including that putback dunk in the first half. Then Brody Robbery, who in the first half, if that dude breathes, he was getting a foul called, scores 12 points the second half, pulls down 4 rebounds the second half, goes 2 of 3 from threes against Montana. Minus Brody Robbery, the Vandals went 3 of 18 from 3. Robbery going 2 of 3 was huge for Idaho. Idaho trailed at the half, but narrowly. But Idaho taking the lead and holding on to it against Montana, absolutely huge. And it was just some guys who you maybe didn't expect would be the leaders of the championship game. Jackson Rasmussen, another dude who made the all-tournament team, and he was freshman of the year in the Big Sky. Colton Mitchell made the all-tournament team, and he was honorable mention all Big Sky. Those 2 guys who have had great moments for Idaho this year, those guys are not why Idaho is heading to their first NCAA tournament in 36 years. Colton Mitchell, 11 points, 3 of 8, took some really poor shots against Montana, going 1 of 5 from 3. Is a lot of those were forced. Not a put down to the dude. He had some huge moments in other games. That's the nature of this team. When you don't have a first team all league Big Sky player, some guys are going to step up some days, and it's going to be other guys turn another. Jackson Rasmussen has some gigantic games for Idaho. He's been the guy I've been saying day in, day out. That's why I want taking the most shots for the team. He got no rhythm in this game at all because he was getting called for foul every time he was breathing. And by the time we're later in the game, he has 4 fouls. The Vandals were in a groove, and Pribble made the right call and just went with the lineup that was working. If Idaho's going to look good in their tournament game, obviously we're going to hopefully get more out of Rasmussen, but Rasmussen kicked ass for almost the entire season and for most of the tournament except that game. But that's a long way of saying, man, the women's championship means a ton no matter what, right? For this Vandals team, 7 years of bad basketball, and then we got what we got in Boise. The crowd for the men's game, that was obviously a pro-Idaho crowd. That was the de facto home game that we have been wanting Boise to be ever since the Big Sky moved the tournament to Boise. The Vandal crowd showed up, and I say that because if this team can do this at all into the next couple of years, that crowd's going to be better. Because for 7 years, minimum 7 years, Idaho has been teaching people in the Pacific Northwest to not pay attention to them. And even this year, they're slightly above 500. That's when you've done what you've done for the previous 7 years. That's just not going to move the needle. So for the men, this feels more like the complete turning of a new leaf, or the time they have finally found that next step to make that we have all been waiting for them to make, that we had been hoping for them to make. And the championship, fantastic to see that happen. Fantastic that both teams are going to get to hang banners for that. Huge deal. But the other part for the men's team is it's just so damn crazy how your entire perspective on this men's team season probably changed with how the Big Sky tournament went. Because this had been a team that on our show, our basic rhythm had been early in the season, we're stoked. Middle of the year, yeah, we're like still okay. We're a little confused why they're not taking that next step because the talent is clearly there. By the end of the season, it's starting to feel like, yeah, they're just who they are. But then this tournament, they found the form that we believe they had early in the year. Need to give a shout out to Trey Blossingame, who had a great defensive outing in the championship game. You might say like, oh, wow, he held Money Williams to 19 points. 19 points is good. Money Williams set the Big Sky tournament record for points in Big Sky tournament. He played in 3 games. He scored 40 in his first. He scored like 32 in his second. He was under the weather, but even in the post game, Money Williams acknowledged that Trey Blossingame played very good defense on him, and the looks Idaho gave Money Williams to just make it hard for him to get the ball was not something they'd really been confronted with for essentially the entire season. Definitely not during the Big Sky Conference tournament. So Dallas Marten, obviously, hey, I'll let you guys jump in with some other stuff, but like for me, Dallas, you're right. I came to Tubbs the Club to cover men's basketball. And in the rise of football during the Jason Eck time, and with a simultaneous, like, hey, we have tried to be reasonable. Like Pribble needs a couple years to get things turned around. Yeah. For me, I actually didn't realize how far away I'd been from really being into a men's team that you not only are you support them because of your team, but they look like they might actually be solid. Like they could do something. And this Big Sky Conference tournament, for me, it kind of brought me back into like, no, Big Sky men's basketball can be exciting. You don't always have to live in tempered expectations, because this team took a quite obvious developmental leap in Boise.
Yeah, Brian, you mentioned it, in the little Tubbs short you did by yourself after the Eastern game. It's almost like the coaching staff started listening to you, and the box score backs that up. You watch the games, and obviously it's pretty apparent. But then when you go back and look at the stats, it is honestly pretty crazy. Idaho goes Sacramento State, Montana State, Eastern Washington, Montana. Idaho shot more 3-pointers than anybody else in the Big Sky coming into the tournament. Then they huck up 33 of them against Sacramento State, who, again, a pretty terrible team. Idaho wins that by 20 plus, walking away with it. Montana State, they shot 16 threes, Brian. Eastern Washington 21, and then Montana 21. Idaho completely throttled down on this insistence on spending at least one half just settling for easy huck up threes that aren't particularly great shots, and really focused on getting into the paint. And what we ended up seeing is, and I forgot the comment. We've had the comment sections popping off, so I've completely missed it. So I apologize to whoever it was that pointed it out. Idaho had somebody different produce in every single one of these games. And now I would say Isaiah Brickner making it into the starting lineup is kind of where this season pivoted and changed and really fixed everything. There's Ross Warren 04 saying the exact same thing I'm saying. Pribble seemed to finally get the team to listen and play together, and I think it was because Isaiah bought in. He was the missing leader. Yeah, as soon as Brickner made it into the starting lineup, obviously the end of the season 4-3 with him in the starting lineup, but then again just really started clicking there. But you had at the first game, again, the Sacramento State blowout game, not necessarily needing anybody to put it on their back. Colton Mitchell led the team with had 17 points. Jackson Rasmussen led the team with 19 points. And you get to Montana State, and it's a completely different story. Biko Johnson has a game where he pops off. Isaiah Brickner looks quite good. Eastern Washington again. Brian, you mentioned Jackson Rasmussen had probably his best game of the season there. Hit a couple threes, had 16 points. Colton Mitchell went off 26 points, and then you get again to Montana last night, and Brickner didn't necessarily put the team on his back, but had that incredible putback dunk. Seemed to be the guy that was hitting every shot when it mattered most. Like, this was very much a team production. It was not a case of, again, Money Williams for Montana had to take over and drag that team to the conference title. This was a Vandal program that it seemed like it was a new guy contributing every single night.
Yeah, and I mean, something that I talking to some people after the game, over this last not quite 24 hours. I hadn't put together that, again, like, hey, women's, men's, just how our paradigm for them has just been radically different. Since joining Tubbs, I had not spent 1 second wondering about Idaho and the NCAA tournament. Not one. Heading into this tournament, like, I mean, we made broad reference, like, well, hey, if Idaho's going to make a run, they're on the right, they have the right bracket, but they'd have to win more than 2 in a row for once. But then, I mean, every good season is going to have some luck too. You have your shitty luck where you lose Christian Gonzalez. Then you have your good luck of you hit the side of the bracket you needed to. But another thing that I want to acknowledge too with this team is something we had correctly identified on this show, correctly identified in our Discord. When teams have been physical with Idaho this year, this is part and parcel to what you talked about offensively, the difference between settling for easy threes versus, meaning like easy to launch them, threes versus getting the ball into the paint and making something happen. When Idaho had played physical teams this year, persistently, when Idaho got punched in the mouth, they backed down. Look at both Northern Colorado games. Look at both Montana games earlier this season. Look at the Portland State games. Physical teams just made Idaho look very bad during the regular season. That was not the case during the Big Sky Conference tournament run. And honestly, especially in the first half, you might say against Montana, Idaho was maybe the more physical team. Now, they certainly got whistled like they were the more physical team, that's for sure. But Idaho, they just played physical. Like, you can talk about the strategy being different like you did offensively, Dallas, but also the team just straight up played tougher in all these 3 games. Like, sometimes I don't even like to think of basketball that way because it's a little bit too simple, but that is part of what happened. The team showed up and they were aggressors much more than they had been the regular season. They were far more aggressive with their offensive use of ball screens too, like actually using the ball screens to do something. And then defensively, they were a lot tougher. And when teams like Montana were tough with them, Idaho did not back down. Ross Warren, when Biko launched that Grizz player into the stands for flagrant, that sent a message they're finally not going to back down. Now, I will say I could have gone with a more subtle message, and I feel that would have been just fine for that, Ross. Biko's had a weird season.
Completely disagree on that, by the way.
You can be physical there without getting a flagrant where you essentially catch the guy, where it's not possible to miss that flagrant call. And I know you're joking.
I mean, we need safety help on the football team. At least we did. And that right there is a safety nickel hybrid right there that would start immediately. Anyways, Brian, we're talking basketball, not football. We still got 6 months.
Yeah, well, no, but I mean, during this game too, like, one of the things that made me anxious was the general shot creators on this team have been Rasmussen, Brickner. But look, hey, part of why Brickner wasn't a starter for a lot of the season was there were times where his decision making was, to say the least, not that sound. That he was great in this tournament, but it's not an accident that to start the season he was not really playing much. I know in the post game they talked about him having a hand injury at the start in the summer, but he'd also been with the team the year before. Pribble knew who he thought Brickner was heading into this season, and early in the year he was barely playing. That just is. I don't think that's an accident, but obviously he grew. But to keep going, the other the offensive creators for Idaho had been Biko Johnson and Colton Mitchell. Well, Colton Mitchell hit a couple shots early and then really had a rough night. We know he's battling through injury. It's not a put down, but it's just a story of this game. Biko Johnson, the second half of the season, he's essentially been really good or really awful, and he was awful last night. So there's 2 shot creators down. And then Jackson Rasmussen was hamstrung with fouls. He barely played at all in the first half and picked up 3 fouls. So this team really was down their top shot creators. And if you talk about the scope of the entire season, as far as volume, they were down their top 3 shot creators this game. So Brickner taking over like he did in the second half. Great story for the team, great story for him, and it lets him have his own place in some all-time Vandal lore. And then Brody Robry, against Eastern, against Eastern, he had 0 points, 0 rebounds because of foul trouble. And then he gets in foul trouble again in the first half, but he's still able to keep it dialed in and have a huge second half. This was incredible for the men to do what they did to finally take that step. And I think it's big for a team like Idaho. Look, we know that. Look, the type of growth the women had, where they went from good to like slightly disappointing, and then in 2 seasons it's the best team we've ever seen. Maybe that clearly is not the trajectory of this team. But my hope is that regardless what happens in the actual tournament, is that Idaho and Pribble himself just needed that big step to take place for the next step to happen. And the gradual growth we'd seen, through his 3 seasons, now that we have the tournament run, it's not gradual growth. 21 and 14 right now. That is significantly better than last season's 14 and 19. But that's off of winning the Big Sky Conference tournament. Heading into the tournament, if Idaho fizzled out the way we kind of expected they would, you'd be talking about like it's a little bit better, but not that much. But no, this tournament run it lets you understand the season completely different. And now what you got to hope is this was the big thing Idaho needed, so they can now be at the point where we're not always tempering expectations. We're now able to say, no, the program has earned. They have earned the right for fans to expect more.
Yeah, Brian, I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves and start talking about next year, but this is the type of thing that you can use to really help launch a program. We've covered it over the last couple of years, talking about Idaho basketball was one of the 10 to 20 worst teams in the entire country. And yes, while you can rebuild a basketball team pretty quick, especially in the era of the transfer portal, Alex Pribble had his work cut out for him. This was not like hey, I'm taking over a mediocre team and I got to make them above 500 and getting close to what we'd call good. This was, I am doing a full recovery job from the corpse of Idaho basketball, and for 3 years to go by and Idaho be in the NCAA tournament for the first time in my lifetime, I'm pretty willing to put Alex Pribble on the Mount Rushmore of Idaho coaches just for this tournament run alone.
Well, look, the Idaho had been bad in the 21st century. I mean, but this is their 3rd 20-win season in the 21st century, guys. 6th season of I think 19 of like 18 or sorry, like 18 or more wins, something like that. This is a program that if you look at 25 years of basketball, the comp for Idaho was not Montana State. It was Idaho State. The hope now is that this will launch Idaho to something different, so that we can now have sustained success, or at least on some version of sustained success. Is that harder in the transfer portal era? Well, duh. But even with that, if you look at who's been good in the Big Sky the last handful of years, you've got Montana State, and then, UNC has also been pretty damn good for a while. The teams that were good recently, as in like the last decade, those have pretty much been the teams that have been good in the Big Sky year in and year out. So we've all known Idaho there was no reason to look at Idaho in the Big Sky and say this is a team that should persistently have their comp be Idaho State. But that's what it had been. That's why, to me, this win, it could be, look, in and of itself, this is the 4th time the men have made the NCAA tournament ever. First time in 36 years. But yeah, 5th time. This is the 5th time this team has ever made the NCAA tournament. So right away, we've got a top 5 season, and that in and of itself is worth it. But now the second is, this is the first time you feel like you can finally hope for something. that might matter in the future, which we'll worry about that later. But that's why the tone for me is just so different about the men's win. It was such a surprise, but for that program, it could just mean so much.
Yeah, couldn't agree more, Brian. This again, for anybody, this is being viewed by more people than we typically have during a basketball season. For anybody that wasn't following along as we and Brian recapped this team week in and week out, this was the epitome of a 500 ball club. Like, some weeks things looked like, hey, there is some serious positive progress here, and then there were times where, Brian, I don't know if I've ever heard you as frustrated as you were. You sounded more frustrated than you did during the 1-win Zach Kloss years, because it was maddening to watch this team struggle in times and places they should not have struggled. So to put it all together, and like you said, the fifth time this program has ever made the NCAA tournament. Obviously, three in the 90s or 3 in the 80s, and then 1990. So realistically, you make it four times in a 10-year stretch, and then you don't go back for 36 years. Pretty wild, just to even be where we were a month ago, where you were talking about, wow, this team is really sliding into the bottom 4, and they're not going to get a bye. They're not, they're at the beginning of the season talking about, hey, it could be a top four program going into the tournament and really start establishing this program. That was not happening until this nice little miracle run, and four wins later. Again, we're talking about one of the top 5 seasons in Vandal history. Ross Warren 04 in the comment section. Let's not forget the real MVP at Tom Kendall. He said of the Tubbs Suite, and since correlation is causation, Tubbs Suite equals championships. I tweeted this right as it happened. I'm not saying that our Patreon putting together this Tubbs Suite, again, Tom Kendall's the one who put it all together. I'm not saying that that's the reason Idaho men and women both won the title, but I'm also not saying that, because I will say Idaho's never done that before. And then the first year there's a Tubbs Suite at Starch Madness, both teams won. So that math lines up. Just saying. Line of 595. Pribble being likable is a big factor. This might be the springboard win that gets the program over the hump. Obviously, we all have hopes and dreams of that. That's the launching point. We gotta make sure that Vandals take care of Vandals, and Pribble and Moreira need to get some new contracts with some better incentives and some cash and some extra years, because again, what has just accomplished on 2 different sides of the coin, the women just steamrolling the entire season, and again, probably the best women's team we're ever going to see here, compared to Idaho being so up and down and then putting it all together when it mattered most. Storybook stuff here, guys. Well, we haven't gotten to the other thing that's not Idaho basketball related. I want to save that to the end of the show. I will touch on it, but Brian Marten, any final thoughts before we start wrapping this thing up?
Well, yeah, we talked about the women's seeding, bracketology for the men. They're going to be a 15 or 16 seed. There's really no way around that. And my hot take, I want a 16 seed because I want Idaho to be in a play-in game, because a play-in game is the most likely chance for a W in the NCAA tournament.
And there's a lot more people watching the games too. There's a lot more eyes than you might get on the game.
That is true. Trayvon Blasting game though, he's done it before.
When is it Farley Dickinson? They're 16 seed 1. If Idaho would obviously need some things to go well, which any 15 or 16 seed needs things to go well to pick up a win in the tournament. So brain dead answer there. I will say there is a regional site in Portland, Oregon. That is where I'm hoping Idaho ends. If they're in the play-in game, that's not where Idaho would be. Dayton, right? Like Tom's saying, the play-in game is always in Dayton, and I believe the play-in game associates with the Eastern region. So they'd be playing not in Portland. So I guess we'll obviously cover it as it comes here. On the one end, I want them to be in Portland. If that means not being a 16 seed or one of the 16 seeds, okay. But if we're not going to be in Portland, I probably want Idaho to be a 16 seed for a chance at an actual win, because those NCAA tournament units are the play-in game gets you the same thing. You do get some exposure. And Tom Kendall, I'm curious what the ratings are. Look, I on the one hand, what I care about are the wins and Idaho having, a good experience. We'll say the reason I'm bringing this up is I know there's more views going on having the championship be on ESPN2, but the national coverage of the Big Sky is garbage compared to the regional coverage of the Big Sky. Like Joe Cravens is an awesome announcer. It's really annoying to have the game bounce from channel to channel when, I know, for me, this isn't the biggest deal in the world. I had to kind of figure out things in the moment of how to access the game because I bought the Sling Day Pass so that I could watch the game, but then the channel ESPN News wasn't on the Day Pass. You can buy up; it didn't cost that much money, but I did have to figure it out, and that is annoying to feel like your team isn't treated seriously. And then at halftime, it's oh yeah, hey, super tight basketball game. Let's talk about Notre Dame. But that's your national audience. But for the NCAA tournament, that getting some national attention can mean more people enroll in their school. Getting national attention can mean some recruits think, yeah, I'd play there. I could do well there. So I don't know which works better let's say if Alex Pribble is on here, I don't know which he would say is better for Idaho. I know selfishly, I want to win. That's why I say the 16 seed for the playing game. But if that's off the table, I want to be able to drive to see this because this is the first time in 36 years. Third time in my lifetime. 89 and 90 are the two most recent times Idaho made the NCAA tournament. It's 82, 83 were the other two. So selfishly, if I can go, I want to
go. Stat correction there. 81, 82, 89, 90, 2026. So pretty big time, guys. This is not something we, as much as we all hope this is the springboard to Idaho becoming the dominant round ball teams in the Big Sky. That's a lot easier to say than it is to do. So enjoy it while it's here. Chuck Caswell in the comment section, if the NCAA had any brains, they'd put Idaho as a 14 seed in Portland versus Gonzaga as a 3. I personally would love that. Only because if Idaho somehow won that, I don't think I would ever let anybody I know here in Spokane ever live that down. But all of that to say, we are almost an hour in, gentlemen. Any final thoughts on, again, to me, this is the best week in Vandal sports history.
I just want to say, the one thing I've enjoyed is just not just this episode, but this whole season about having gone from, 3-5 years ago, where I'm watching YouTube cover a 1-win basketball team doing instant recaps after the COVID stuff. It was rough.
That was fun.
It was fun. I mean, obviously we all know that. I mean, there were coaches taking this team more seriously than this show seemed to be at some points, but it's fun to have that turnaround.
Yeah, what a ways we have come from not hate watching that 1-win team, but basically
it was hate watching. It was hate watking. Let's not try and sugarcoat this. It was hate watching.
Not the players, but we doubled down on the coverage of that awful team because of how bad they were.
I like to think it was because it was COVID and there was nothing else going on, but yeah, no, that's 100% what it was. Ross Warren 04 co-signed best week I've ever had as a Vandal. And that's where I wanted to touch on my very last final point here, guys, just because Schadenfreude is a real thing. And I think most of us can agree on fuck you, BSU. For anybody that doesn't pay a ton of attention to the Mountain West Conference, Boise State just so happened to lose to a really, really, really bad San Jose State squad in the first round of the Mountain West tournament at the same time that the Idaho men's and women's team were putting together the best day in Vandal athletics history. So welcome the 3-17 in conference, 9-23 overall San Jose State 25-26 Mountain West men's basketball program. I will love you forever. I couldn't name anything about you other than your coach was once the Nebraska ball head coach. And man, just thank you for being the cherry on top to really punch Boise right in the nuts, right as we are on top of the world. So,
hey Dallas,
great.
How did Boise State start their season?
Martin, that's a great question. How did Boise State start their season? I think they barely won an exhibition against Idaho. Just barely, ever so slightly.
No, the regular season game, I should
Oh,
add.
no. I'm getting there. And then, they just barely squeaked out against that Idaho team. And then there was this team, I think they might have been called the Sharks, maybe. Maybe a Division II school. Fuck you, Boise State. You lost to a Division II school and then a dog shit school in the first round of your conference tournament. Get fucked.
Like, I can't wait for the new transition for why Boise State won't play Idaho in basketball to go from, oh, we can't afford to schedule them to like, yeah, we can't afford to schedule them.
Yeah. Fuck them. Gentlemen, we will be back next week to discuss, again, the first round games for the Idaho men's and women's basketball, as both teams are going dancing next week. Selection Sunday this weekend. I believe the men is at 12 Pacific, 1 Mountain, and then the women is 5-6 Pacific Mountain. So we will find out where Idaho's teams are going in just a couple days. Support our show, patreon.com/Tubs of the Club. Thank you guys for joining in with us. Thank you for dealing with our restream issues as we work out this new platform. Man, it's always a good day to be a Vandal. But, oh, man, as Mark Triple P says, Idaho going 3-0 when playing 2 games is always the best. And, my God, what a great week to be an Idaho Vandal, boys. With that said, go Vandals.
Go Vandals.
Go Vandals.